Hi there, my name is Peter Terrace, and I'm the candidate for the People's Party of Canada for the riding of Niagara Falls. That includes Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake, and Fort Erie. And I'm here to speak to you about our policies regarding to agriculture. One of the things that we stand for is smaller government. We believe that government should create the conditions for human flourishing and then get out of the way. I think anytime that government gets involved, especially big government, normally projects don't go smoother. Normally, people's lives are not improved. We find that by getting out of the way, we also leave more money in people's pockets, in their own pockets, and they can decide how they want to spend it themselves. Because every time a politician promises you to give you money, guess what? They may be giving it to you this time, but they're also promising the same thing to many other groups, and that comes out of your pocket. So we want our reflex to be not how can we give more money or how can we spend more money, how can we make government bigger. My reflex and the reflex of the party will always be, how do we make government more efficient? How do we make government smaller? Because as the government gets bigger, the citizen gets smaller. So we want to make sure we want to reverse that, and we want to make the citizen larger and the government smaller. So in terms of policy for farmers, we don't have a lot of specific policy for farmers, except for the fact that we want to create the conditions. We don't want to control markets. I mean, we've seen when you have centralized control of markets, where you've seen that in the Soviet Union, where they try to control markets, especially in Lysenkoism. He was one of the architects of the greatest agricultural disaster ever in the Soviet Union. And so, you want to avoid having that kind of centralized control in any kind of agricultural situation. And we do see some of that now. We've seen some of that in the past. So I'm in the Niagara region, and we used to have that with the grape growers. The grape growers, there used to be a centralized control within the government where they would control the pricing of the grapes to ensure that the farmers got a good price, so-called in air quotes. But really, it didn't actually help the farmers because it controlled the market, and it actually sometimes they would have to subsidize it using taxpayers' money. And really, I think farmers, especially we've seen here in the Niagara region, they've proven to be quite resourceful and in taking advantage of a very good situation. So we want to also break down the barriers, the internal trade barriers within our own country. I mean, in order to sell wine, for example, from Ontario, it's easier to sell it to another country than it is to sell it to another province. We want to break down those barriers. We find those barriers really don't have any constructive purpose other than controlling the markets in those other provinces, where we have some provinces have these controlled, these sort of boards, and these boards that control markets. We believe that the best way that farmers can make a lot of money is by opening up the market as much as possible. I'll give you an example. So in the U.S., the U.S. farmers, they're allowed to use human growth hormones in their cows in order to make them grow faster. In Canada, we do not have that. So in other words, it's illegal to feed a cow human growth hormone. So a lot of people in the U.S., a lot of people who are aware and who are health conscious, they avoid drinking the milk because of the human growth hormone, and for good reason. But in Canada, if we were able to export our milk to the US, we would have an advantage just from that one little small point. And it would also open up an enormous market for our dairy farmers. So these are some of the things that we would be advocating for and trying to help our farmers with, because we believe that if we create those conditions for flourishing, the farmers will be able to figure it out. We don't need to be able to control how many cows they have, how much milk they're producing. They'll be able to figure out. They know already what they need to do and how much milk they need to produce. And if we open up the market for them, I think that'll provide a lot of opportunity for them. Now, I know a lot of farmers are concerned because they've got these quotas. These quotas are a government construct where there's a value attached to it. So that's something that we would have to work on in order to protect the farmers, because I know there's a lot of anxiety from farmers about these quotas that are worth an awful lot of money. And you know what? They have a real value, but the value is primarily because it's government controlled. So we would have to make sure these farmers are treated fairly. If we when we came to that point where we had to back out of the supply management and back out of centralized control of some of these markets like dairy, egg, that kind of thing. So we'd have to be careful how we do that, because we'd want to make sure these farmers are not affected in a unfortunate way or in a bad way at all. So we'd be very cognizant of that as a government. And so we want to make sure we open up opportunities without opening them up to any potential harm. So those are some of the things that we stand for as the People's Party. And yeah, so that's what we're about.